Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to another Call of Duty commentary. If you're new here, sit back, relax, and grab a snack because we are about to chat. Now, stick with me here because we're going to go a little bit off cuff today. I want to talk about something that has come to my attention since I'm trying to be more aware of the world around me. Today, I want to challenge the way you think about choice. We all like to believe that we have control over our lives, that every decision that we make is our own. But what if I told you that most of the choices that you make aren't really yours? That the options that you're given are designed to make you feel like you're in control, when in reality, you're just following a script. See, this is the illusion of choice. Now, stick with me here. This topic may sound like it's geared towards Ultra Sigma bros, but what I really want to advocate here is not that we all turn into Super Sigma finance bros, but instead, just try and take a high level view of the world around you and realize that people are trying to influence you all the time. And if you want to be free of that, you need to be observant of it. So let's get into it. From the moment we wake up, we're faced with choices: what to wear, what to eat, what to buy, and what to believe. But take a closer look. Are these choices really ours? Or are they shaped by something else? Think about it. The food you eat, chosen for you by marketing, availability, and habits formed at childhood. The news you consume, fed to you by algorithms designed to reinforce what you already believe. The career path you take, heavily influenced by social expectations, financial pressures, and the limited opportunities that you're exposed to. You're not as free as you think, and that's by design. The illusion of choice is one of the most powerful forms of control in modern society. The system doesn't force you to do anything. It simply presents you with pre-approved options and tricks you into believing that you're making a free choice. In reality, you're just choosing between controlled outcomes. It's like a magician doing card tricks. They tell you, pick a card, any card. But what you don't realize is that every card you could possibly choose was already planted there. Your choice was never really yours. It was an illusion. And the worst part? The trick is everywhere. It's in what you buy, what you believe, who you vote for, and even how you live your life. Take consumerism, for example. You ever walk into a grocery store and see an entire aisle filled with 20 different brands of cereal? It feels like freedom, right? Like you have so many options. But here's the reality. All of those brands are owned by the same three companies: Kellogg's, General Mills, and Post-Consumer Brands. So whether you grab Frosted Flakes, Cocoa Puffs, or Raisin Bran, you're still giving your money to the same entity. If you're picky about what company you give your money to, then your choice was an illusion. The product changed, but the power stayed the same. And it doesn't stop at cereal. Walk into the beverage aisle. Same thing. Most soft drinks, juices, and energy drinks are owned by Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, or Keurig Dr. Pepper. Keep going, walk into the cosmetics aisle. Same thing there as well. Most beauty brands are owned by L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, or Procter & Gamble. The entire market is structured to give you the feeling of choice without giving you any real power. Because as long as they can control the brands, it won't matter which one you choose. Your money still flows into the same hands. And what's the real purpose of this illusion? To make you feel empowered as a consumer while keeping you complacent in a controlled economy. Because if you ever realized how consolidated power actually is, you might start asking some questions. Now, let's shift over to politics. Nowhere is the illusion of choice stronger than in politics. You walk into a voting booth, see two major candidates on the ballot, and think, I'm making a choice. But are you really? Just think about it. How did those two candidates even get there? Who funded their campaigns? Who decided that these two people were the only viable options? The truth is, by the time you're casting your vote, the real choice has already been made. Powerful institutions, corporate donors, and political elites already filtered out anybody who could truly challenge the system. What you're left with is two pre-approved puppets, both operating within the same established framework. It's not red versus blue, and it's not left versus right. It's establishment candidate A versus establishment candidate B. And sure, they might argue over surface level issues like tax rates, social programs, or cultural policies. But when it comes to fundamentally changing the power structure, neither of those guys are going to touch it because neither candidate can. The system made sure that by the time you get to choose, the outcome already doesn't matter. And as long as you believe that you made a choice, you'll stay invested in the illusion. Now that we've dived super deep into the politics illusion or whatever, let's move on to social media and news. And this one's dangerous because it doesn't just manipulate what you buy, it manipulates what you believe. You hop on social media, scroll through your feed, and you think that you're consuming content that you chose. But did you ever stop to ask yourself, why is this content showing up in my feed in the first place? It's not random. Algorithms are designed to feed you content that keeps you emotionally engaged the longest. That's what makes the big corporations money. They're designed to suppress content that challenges the mainstream narrative because that threatens political control. And they're also designed to amplify outrage, division, and conflict because chaos keeps people distracted from the real issues. So what does that mean for you? If you get most of your news from social media, your perception of reality is being engineered. If you only see one side of an argument, it means that your opinion is being manipulated. And if you spend hours scrolling mindlessly, your brain is being conditioned. And the most sinister part, you think that you're choosing to consume, but you're not. Your feed is curated to keep you in a specific mindset, one that benefits the platforms, corporations, and media conglomerates that control the information flow. If you want real choice, you have to intentionally seek out opposing viewpoints, consume unfiltered content, and critically question everything that you're fed. Otherwise, your opinions will never actually be yours. And here's the crazy part. The illusion of choice isn't some new phenomenon. Social media just supercharged something that's already been happening for decades. Think about older generations, the people who never got into social media. You might think that they were free from this manipulation, but they weren't. It was just packaged differently. Instead of being fed information through an algorithm, they were fed information through a television screen. Every night, they sat down and watched the same news channel, and that one news channel shaped their entire worldview. And here's the kicker. They thought that they were informed, they thought that they were making up their own minds, and they thought that they were getting the full story. But in reality, the news channel was just the algorithm of the 20th century. Because just like social media algorithms, mainstream media was controlled by corporate sponsors who dictated what stories could or couldn't air. It was dictated by government influence that shaped public perception of global events. And it was selective framing to make certain issues seem more important than others that was controlled in this media. And just like social media today, the goal was never to inform people. It was to control how you perceive the world. The only real difference between then and now is the delivery. Back then, they were controlled by one screen in their living room. Now, you're controlled by one screen in your pocket. But the mechanism is identical. You're only shown what keeps you compliant. And you're only told what keeps you afraid or divided. And you're only exposed to the narratives that serve the system. And the result? The older generation was manipulated into blind patriotism, excessive consumerism, and trust in larger institutions, and the younger generation is manipulated into outrage. They're manipulated into division and emotional dependency on digital platforms. It's a different delivery, but it's all the same control. Now let's take it back from that tangent for a second, and let's go back to how the illusion of choice is in our work and career paths. From the time you were a kid, you were handed a life script. Go to school, get good grades, go to college. Now get a stable job, work for 40 years, and retire at 65. Then, after all that is done, enjoy your life. And the craziest part of this is that nobody ever told you to question it. It was presented as the only viable path. But why? Why is entrepreneurship rarely encouraged in schools? Why is financial literacy not taught in most curriculums? Why is the 9-to-5 job structure presented as the normal path to success? Because the system needs workers, not independent thinkers. They need you in debt so that you have to keep working. They need you dependent on a paycheck so that you can't rebel. They need you to follow the script so that you don't break the system. And if you ever step outside of that script, if you quit your job, start a business, or challenge the norms, you will immediately feel social pressure to conform again. People will call you crazy, irresponsible, or a dreamer. But that's only because they're still trapped in the illusion. The truth is, there are endless ways to live your life. But society doesn't want you to see them, because if you did, you would be harder to control. Now think about your lifestyle and relationships for a minute. You think that you're choosing your own preferences in beauty standards, relationship dynamics, or lifestyle goals. But are you? Or were those preferences implanted in you? For example, why do you think a mansion with luxury cars is the ultimate symbol of success? Why do you think that you need to be married by 30 or that you've failed in life? Why do people feel pressured to fit a certain beauty standard? Everything. From the music you listen to, the celebrities you admire, and the lifestyle you dream about is engineered. You didn't randomly decide you wanted these things. You were conditioned to want them. And the wildest part? Most people will live their entire lives chasing those implanted desires without ever realizing that they were never theirs to begin with. And think about your relationships. Multiple generations have been cultivated to find partners that look a certain way. Men won't even consider a woman as a potential date if she's above a certain weight or her breasts aren't the right size. Women won't consider a man as a potential date if he's under a certain height or if he's not muscly enough. We've allowed beauty and physical enhancement companies to influence how our society views people and what metrics that they have to meet in order to be considered attractive. All the while, we've begun to allow ourselves to lose sight of qualities that matter, such as honor, virtue, kindness, compassion, and self-respect, in place of fleeting pleasures such as sex, beauty, and social status. So why do we even fall for the illusion of choice? Simple. Because it's comfortable. Real freedom is overwhelming. Too many choices cause paralysis. The system claims to reward compliance, and that following the script supposedly means stability, predictability, and fewer risks. And last, we crave validation. Society praises those who succeed from following the expected path, so we conform without even realizing it. It's easier to believe that we're in control than to accept that we've been programmed. So how do we break free? If you want to reclaim your ability to make real choices, you have to break out of this illusion that's been crafted around you. It won't be easy. It requires you to think differently, to act differently, and to ultimately take control of your own mind. But if you do that, you'll gain a level of freedom that most people will never touch. And here's how. First, you have to question everything. Before you make any decision, stop and ask yourself, why am I choosing this? Who benefits from my decision? And am I thinking for myself, or am I following a script that was handed to me? Most people won't do this. They'll just follow the default path. They'll go to school, get a job, buy a house, and retire at 65, because that's what they were told was the right thing to do. But what if that's not your path? And what if you're only doing it because society told you that's what success looks like? By asking yourself these hard questions, you start to separate your real desires from programmed desires. You start to notice that you're being manipulated. And most importantly, you can actually start thinking for yourself. The people who succeed in life are the ones who learn to pause before making major life choices and ask, whose voice is really influencing me right now? Is it mine or is it someone else's? Second, you have to limit your external influence. You can't make real choices if your mind is constantly being flooded with noise. Every time you scroll on social media, watch the news, or consume mainstream content, you're being hit with subtle influence tactics designed to manipulate your thoughts. Think about it. Why do you think certain topics trend on Twitter or dominate the news cycle for weeks at a time? It's not an accident, and it's not random. Someone somewhere is choosing what you should care about. And if you don't recognize that, you'll just blindly follow the crowd. So if you want to regain your ability to think clearly, you need to minimize the noise. That means taking breaks from social media, limiting how much news that you consume, and staying away from clickbait content designed to trigger emotional responses. The less noise that you let in, the more you'll start to hear your own thoughts. And that's when you'll start making decisions based on what you actually want and not what they told you to want. Third, you have to explore alternatives. One of the biggest traps is the belief that the obvious option is the only option. It's not. In fact, the most rewarding choices in life are usually hidden behind options that you were never presented with. For example, instead of going to college and drowning in debt, you could learn a high-income skill online for free. Instead of working a 9-to-5 job, you could build a business or a freelance and control your own income. Instead of investing in a retirement plan that takes you 40 years to pay off, you can invest in assets that generate cash flow right now. But here's the catch. Nobody is going to hand you these options. Society only offers you the paths that benefit the system. If you want something different, you have to go looking for it. You have to read books that you normally wouldn't read. Seek out opinions that you don't agree with. And talk to people who've lived unconventional lives. The more perspectives that you expose yourself to, the more you will realize how many choices you actually have. And once you realize that, you'll never feel trapped again. Fourth, you have to develop a true sense of self-awareness. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people have no idea what they really want. They think they do. But if you strip away social influence, they wouldn't know how to answer the question, what do I actually want from life? Why? Because most of their wants were planted in their mind by somebody else. They want a big house because society said success looks like that. They want to get married by 30 because social norms said that's their timeline. And they want to retire early because they think freedom comes later, not now. But what do you actually want? Like really? Not what your parents wanted, not what your friends expect, and not what society promotes, but what do you want? The only way to answer that is by spending time alone with your own mind. Start journaling. Write down what you think you want, and then ask yourself why you want it. Spend time in silence without distractions. Let your real thoughts come to the surface. And reflect on your biggest regrets and dreams. What do they reveal about your true desires? The more self-aware you become, the easier it gets to make decisions that align with your true self, instead of being manipulated into choices that you never really wanted. Finally, you have to accept responsibility. This is the hardest step, but it's also the most powerful step. If you want true freedom, you have to own every single decision that you make. No more blaming society, no more blaming your parents, and no more blaming the system. Even if you were manipulated into a certain path, it's still your responsibility to break free from it. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to hand you a different life. If you want something different, you have to take it. And that means accepting that if you're broke, it's your responsibility to change that. And if you hate your job, it's your responsibility to leave or build something better. And if you feel trapped in life, it is your responsibility to break free. Now, this is tough love, but it's the truth. You can't be free if you're still blaming external factors for the way that your life is. Real freedom comes from radical responsibility, owning every single part of your life, no matter how it got that way. And once you do that, you'll realize that you were never really trapped. The doors were always open. You just had to choose to walk through them. That's how you break the illusion of choice. You stop following the default path. You silence the noise. You start thinking for yourself. And most importantly, you take full ownership of your life. Because here's the truth. The only real choice that you have in this life is, will you think for yourself, or will you let somebody else do it for you? The choice was always yours. So here's the question. Are you making choices, or are you just picking from the options given to you? If you never thought about this before, now's the time. And if you like this video, I've got more thought-provoking videos such as my previous one about discipline versus motivation. Now let me know in the comments, what's a decision that you've made that's felt like a real choice? And if you've got any questions, whether it's life advice, career struggles, or personal dilemmas, shoot me an email at bigjohn.submissions@yahoo.com, and I'll answer them in a future video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.